Hi, everyone, and welcome back. In this section, we're going to be talking about Chapter 21, which is entitled Voting Behavior in Referendums. So, referenda are particularly rare, honestly, like much more rare than just regular elections, but they do happen. They're pretty common in Switzerland and Ireland and Italy, and in a handful of American states like Texas and California. Texas, anytime there's a change to the Texas Constitution, it has to pass muster by the people, basically. So we have referenda on those. Brexit is another really famous example of a referenda where the British decided they were going to leave the European Union. It's been particularly disastrous so far, but they chose to do it. So there's two different perspectives basically on what drives voter decisions in referenda decisions. The first is parties, and the second is issues. So why would parties matter, right? There are a couple reasons for this. One is there's two different ways to bring referenda to the electorate, right? The first is by signing petitions and having it sort of a citizen-led referenda. You get, thousands or hundreds of thousands even of signatures by your constituency in the state or the country or whatever it is, and you can bring a particular policy question to an election that way. But that's pretty rare. The vast majority of referenda come from the legislature, and it's like they either want the electorate's opinion on a policy that they're considering putting in, or the population by, say, constitutional rule has to vote to make changes, say, to the Constitution, and so the legislature will bring the referenda to a vote. So, in that sense, when you have the legislature bringing the referenda, parties do matter, right? A lot of these referenda are called by the parliament, right? And so the parties themselves have already sort of stated their preferences and made their positions clear on the issue at hand. And so the party has already sort of staked their claim, and voters can receive signals about that from the parties because of that. There's also the idea that some of these referenda, the issue is already claimed, basically, by the left or the right or by particular parties. So if you think about things like divorce policy, which was big in Ireland, or abortion policies, these things are pretty clearly defined by the political parties already. But when you get to things like European Union membership or European Union rules, right, it doesn't really fall very clearly on one. On sort of the ideological spectrum, and so parties take sort of a back seat under those conditions. So when the issue conflict isn't really clear ideologically, and when the political parties or the legislature itself has not brought the referendum to the vote, those are the conditions under which the party will have a lot less influence, right? And so that moves us on to why do issues matter if the party's not sort of attached already. And this is the idea that sort of some policies just don't really attach ideologically or politically. The EU voting would be a really good example. Brexit, or whether other countries want to join or stay in the EU. Scottish independence doesn't really fall cleanly on the ideological spectrum, and so issue sort of valence becomes much more important. And what we find when that happens is that people sort of fall back on economic perspectives. We find that when the parties aren't really aligned in any, easily understandable way, voters fall back onto economic issues and economic perspectives. How is entering the EU or taking up the sort of euro as our currency going to affect us economically? And that becomes sort of the lens through which people make their decisions. Most studies find that people know very little about referenda, and those who know the least about referenda tend to just vote no. They tend to try to uphold the status quo, which is an interesting finding. And then when we turn to turnout, we find turnout it varies widely. It varies so much more than just like the first order elections on presidents or parliaments. Those are pretty predictable and pretty stable. But referenda turnout varies really widely, especially in sort of the American context. In the States, it's really low. And we also find that the individual determinants of turnout are basically the same for regular elections, right? The most politically informed, the most politically interested, the older the voter, the more educated and the wealthier they are, the more likely they are to turn out for referenda elections. All right, so that'll do it for me for chapter 21. I'll see you in the next one, and have a great day.